Welcome to Propel Your Destiny, a self-coaching path to empowering your life. This is Lori Elliott with Conceptually, and I'm going to take you through understanding or orienting you to this pathway that we've developed to accompany the venture cultivation programs. First of all, Propel is all about getting you to be instead of do. Shakespeare says, "To thine own self be true." What he means by that is work out of your identity. Who you are inside dictates what your life ought to be. Douglas Cooper says identity cannot be found or fabricated, but emerges from within when one has the courage to let go. And as an example, you cannot duplicate someone else. You cannot be who they are. You cannot take their personality. You cannot take their purpose. You don't fit because that is not you. You are to be who you were designed to be before you were even born. It is in your DNA. It is in your spirit. Your spirit, that identity that is in your spirit, is the seed of your greatness, the seed of your future, the seed of your destiny, the seed of your potential. And it is up to you to cultivate it. Every dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. That's Harriet Tubman. The key is not what you see outside, but who you are inside and how that emerges to impact what's around you. So what is Propel? It's really a shift from doing to being. The program itself, the path itself, is assistance with discovering and releasing your true self. It's a self-coaching path. That simply means we do not get into the middle of that. We give you a framework that you go through. It complements the venture cultivation path. Now, in that case, if you're using this, which most of you probably are working through this as you're working through the venture cultivation for your venture, you are going to intersect. Even though it's self-coaching, we as a team, those as your coaches, will be able to see if you're actually going through this process. We'll be able to see if you're changing, if you're getting stronger and more sure of what you're doing and your idea, and you're able to push through and make things happen. That comes as you understand more about your identity. And so you will be doing this in conjunction with, but the point is that Propel is a personal, private matter. It is only that which you want to manifest to us and to others that we intersect with. There are boundaries that some relationships should not go past. Even though, as you will learn as we go through this process, that your life is to be converged, where your profession, your purpose, and your personal aspects are really all working as one together. They're just different aspects working out of your identity. Now, the key here is that Propel, again, is a framework. It is not a prescription. So it focuses on these 6 things, and that's where we get the acronym PROPEL from. First of all, your passion and purpose. Your passion and purpose are a reflection of your identity, and everything is centered around these factors. These factors then lead to your destiny being fulfilled. In order to learn more about your identity, to see that your identity, your passion, and your purpose begin to emerge and to grow, is really happening through a process of internal work and external work. First, there's reflection and meditation, and that's actually looking at, okay, what is happening to me? How do I feel? Why do I respond this way? Why do I do that so well? Why do I not do that so well? And then meditating to determine if anything comes forth that begins to stick with you, so that you understand there are certain things that you do well, certain things that you don't do well, certain things that you need to improve. This is part of the internal work of developing a venture. And again, that comes from working to uncover your identity that's always been there and will continue to be there. You have to plug into it. There's also observation and recording. That may be observing things around you. It could be interactions. It could be just events. For example, some things could even be in the newspaper that you think impact your business, impact you personally, and you're watching to see how things go. And then you're to record it. Now, typically, recording means writing it down, but some people may not feel comfortable with that. That's okay, because this is a personal exercise. It's not about turning in things, to make you look good or whatever else. It is totally your own journey. You can write very shortly, just brief things, just so that you understand. You can also record, using your telephone, for example, just as long as you are recording, because you want to be able to go back and see those things that you've learned, because in studying what you've recorded and observed and meditated on in the past, you will then often begin to see patterns. So this is allowing you to begin to see your identity emerge. And then often, once you have this process going, you're going to find that, okay, if I'm going to move to the next level, there are certain things that I need to do, and there may be certain things that I need to learn. So that's really about the equipping and the experience. And liftoff is simply as you get this groundswell, of where things start connecting, and all of a sudden you're now lifting off to another level. And so that's why we come up with liftoff. It's like a launch pad. You're getting yourself organized to move to the next step. It's not that formal, but just the idea that many things are starting to come forth from you that in your spirit will take you to the next level in your life. And when you do that, that then impacts your personal relationships, it impacts your venture, it impacts your destiny. So, what are the components of each step? Just like today, this is the orientation, so it doesn't count. Okay, it's not step one, but there's a short video about 10 to 15 minutes that's covering to explain the background about what you are engaging with that week. For example, if it's about personality, we'll give you a little bit of information about the idea of personality, and then we'll have tools. And then there will be questions for you to reflect on. And then as you think about those questions and then you meditate on the answers that you bring forth, you'll also observe what you do and what is happening around you in light of the focus of a step. For example, again, if we go back to personality, you may discover that you have a certain personality with certain strengths, and then that explains why you enjoy doing certain things and not others. And then you then begin to see how your team is responding and acting and behaving, and you can notice differences in them and understand perhaps, well, this person might have this type of personality, which makes them very strong, for example, in doing accounting or very detailed work. Okay, trying to give them something that's very loose and abstract is not something that they can really work with. So if you're trying to push them into that too quickly, you might actually get a lot of resistance and very little performance. Okay, so the idea is to begin to see and understand what you are doing, what's happening on the inside of you, and those things that are around you. And then you also want to record all of these things. What are you sensing, seeing, experiencing, etc.? And then, and not always, because not every reflection, not every meditation, not every observation or recording actually has to have an action. But if you determine that actions are to be taken, you then determine what they are and then the steps that you're going to take to do that. So how does this actually flow and propel? It's designed to complete one step a week, but you do what works for you. Now, I will say that if you are doing this in conjunction with the venture cultivation, we are expecting you to go through this every week, step by step, just like with the venture cultivation. In venture creation, there are 24 steps. For venture cultivation, there are 24 steps in Propel. The same goes for in Venture Jumpstart, which is from seed to startup. Okay. Now, not only should you be doing this, but every member of your key team, because this is about growth. As you all are growing individually, working out of your identity, understanding where your strengths are, you will then be able to carry that venture much further and mature it so that you can gain access to the resources and funding that you're seeking. Okay, so this is all a process, but this is again a very personal and private thing. It is not something that we're telling that you need to do as a group and just share everything. Some people are like that, they like to do that, but you will have team members, maybe from their culture, maybe from their personality, where that is taboo. I will tell you, I myself personally am a very private person, and I really only share very deep things with people that I know and trust implicitly. And that's okay, by the way. It's okay if people like to share information too, that's their personality. Now, the key thing is to learn, and that's why this process of understanding identity and respecting who the person is and valuing them for who they are, their identity, not for their behaviors, but for who they are as a person. And then when we begin to do that, we then begin to respect boundaries. We then begin to learn to flow with one another in our appropriate, unique spaces. Because when we come into adventure, every person has a vision, they have a purpose, and we are now coming together to bring a greater vision, a greater purpose that helps us as individuals fulfill part of our identity and purpose, right, and our passion. But it is now a combined thing that now helps many, okay, even if it's a for profit venture. Now, this can be a process you do every year, not just this year. After you go through this for the purposes of venture cultivation, then you will find that there are aspects of this that you want to reinvestigate, relook at, reconnect with, every year, every 3 years, whatever that is, because again, this is a journey. This is a path and framework that we're providing. This is a journey. There are going to be things that you are going to continually emerge with out of your identity. Now, what I have found over the years is that every year there is something key that I'm learning about my identity, a new layer, a new essence of who I truly am. And that empowers me to do amazing things in my mind, with my ventures, okay? And even in my personal life. And that is like an onion. It's literally peeling off layer by layer by layer to get to that true self. And I can't really say that we will ever know all of our identity that we live, but we'll get to a point where we understand the core. And that core, once you get to that core, you can build off of that to do many different things in your personal and the life of your venture. So that's the key. There's also going to be a flow between reflection, meditation, observation, and recording with equipping, experiencing, and liftoff. The meditation, the reflection, those are really more of an internal thing. You're sitting back. You're not passive in the sense that you're doing nothing. You're active, but you are, you're processing, you're moving through things internally. You're not in the middle of the stuff, okay? You're outside of it. When you're talking about equipping, experiencing, and lifting off, that's where you have the activity. But the key always in any one of these is to be in a state of being, not doing. It's not about doing more. It's about doing things that are operating out of your being. Don't rush this process. You are not going to figure everything out in a week, in a month, in 3 months, in a year. Gain all that you can with whatever time frame you have, but know that you still have a path and a journey to follow. So how again does this flow? Propel should flow with you instead of you flowing with it. Propel is helping you develop your own frame of reference of how to bring forth your identity and through it fulfill your destiny. Propel is not a set of tasks that you check off. It is an enabling process. Your life should begin to converge as more of your true self is released. Now, other resources. Propel is a path, so that means that it doesn't cover everything and may not cover something in as much depth as you want. Use other resources, use other people. Remember, this is about making it your own. We're just giving you a framework to help you, kind of keep moving, keep improving, keep looking at what's happening around you, understanding more about yourself and all of that. This is a process, and there is no perfect formula for it for every person. Okay, it's going to, as you go through it, you're going to find things that work really well for you, and you're going to stick with those things to help keep your identity to emerge. Um, One activity, though, that will help you tremendously is daily journaling. And there are plenty of resources, either YouTube videos, articles on the internet that you can explore that. Again, we're a path. We're going to provide you a core set of tools throughout, but you need to make this your own. So that means that you need to go out and find additional resources to help you in this process. And by the way, we provide plenty of tools, okay? So if you don't feel inclined in a particular week, you don't have to worry about it, but we do encourage you, because as you begin to connect with more information and tools to help you explore who you are, you're going to find that so many things unfold within you, and that's what we're trying to release, because the wealth or the prosperity or the success that you're seeking is not outside of you. It is inside of you. It is the seed that's inside of you. So, as I said before, that seed, that identity, is the seed of potential, is the seed of success. It is the seed of prosperity. It is the seed of wealth. Everything starts with you first, out of your spirit. So, standard tools and techniques that you will be using throughout this. There is your daily journaling, which I've mentioned. There's also a weekly insight feedback sheet. Now, this is a part of the group coaching, and so we will get into that sheet next week, or I should say in the first step, because what that is what you give to us. It's not everything that you've processed or explored during the week, but just what is what you're willing to provide feedback onto a open forum. And again, it's not public, but within your group coaching and with your coach, these are things that you feel free to share. But you can still use the sheet in principle to help you process your daily journaling. So each day you're going to obviously have different reflections, different things that you observe, things that you're recording and meditating on, but you really don't see any pattern. So what we say is that you can use the weekly insight feedback sheet as you review and you see patterns, then write a summary, right, of those trends, those patterns, those things that you see that really stick out. And that's what you use the weekly insight feedback sheet. And whereas we will go into that in the first step, let me just say that it talks about what it asks you to think about and put down, what did you reflect on, meditate on, observe, what went well, what lessons did you learn, areas of improvement that are needed, and if you determine that there are actions that need to be taken, what are those new actions and next steps? Okay. Third key tool: day of rest, relaxation, recreation, and reflecting each week. You kind of combine it, and some people that may be reading a book, I like to read a book that's not related to what I'm working on, might be watching TV, might be going hiking, but you need to disconnect from everything so that your mind is clear, your body is able to relax and reinvigorate itself for the next week. Now, some people call that a Sabbath. They take it on Saturday or Sunday. Really, it doesn't have to be a particular formula. The idea is just to make sure that you have time set aside where you can experience this and disconnect. Some people can do it every day. They can, clear their mind where they can get an hour or two after work or in the morning, in order to relax. That is entirely up to you. And there will be some times where you're working on a deadline or some things where you can't take your normal. That's fine, but I make sure that I then take extra time to relax. So if I've been intensely working for 3 months, I might take 3 or 4 days off, not 100% off, but downtime where I can just think and clear my head and see what happened and how I can move into the next stage. Okay, so it doesn't always necessarily mean that you're fully disconnected. You should have that period, on a regular basis, but when you're in this cycle where you have to really push through something and you don't have that regular time, at least having time where you can, relax the activity and begin to process everything that's happening. Because oftentimes what I find is my creativity is heightened, my ability to find solutions when I just kind of, tone down, begin to look and reflect and just see what I'm sensing in my spirit instead of all the activity around me. Okay, and so this is again something very personal. I'm not going to be able to give you many of the answers as to how this works inside of you. I take the role of a coach, not to tell you everything, but to help you and serve as a guide as you go along your path. So just before we get ready to close, let me just reiterate how this works with venture cultivation and group coaching for those of you that are involved in this part. And again, I believe that's going to be the majority of you. Basically, group coaching is made available or is actually required for venture cultivation if, for example, you are in our programs that then give you access to resources and ecosystems and partnerships and all of that, then it is actually a requirement. If you're not in that aspect of our venture cultivation programs, then you don't have to be in group coaching. You can do this even the venture cultivation because we do have everything pre-recorded. You can do this as a self-directed thing that you carry through and work on your own. So you do have some flexibility if you are not interested in accessing the funding platforms and the resources and things like that. Because for us, we want to know you before you work along with us as we work with you to bring in those resources. So venture cultivation, again, that group coaching, it's about your venture, not your personal life. So whatever you add again into the group coaching aspect is what you feel comfortable with releasing, comfortable in sharing. There are certain things that I cannot tell people, don't want to tell people, but I can phrase it in a way in a group setting so people can learn and experience and I can share, but not having to give up my privacy. And so these are all personal things that you will have to learn. Now, remember, in reality, your personal life spills over and should be one with your venture. It all should be converged. There is no separation, okay? Because everything is working out of your identity. You should begin to see those alignments. If there are disconnects, one way that I can tell if something is not really quite right, but if something is pulling me from my main passion, purpose, and identity, okay, that means that the structure or something, the relationship in it is probably not right, and it's not flowing with who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing. And so until I can figure that out, I don't get involved in that or try not to get involved in it because then I feel like I'm trapped and then I get into stuff that's taking me away from my purpose. Okay? You should also share what is appropriate with your team colleagues and those in the group coaching. And the reason for that is as individuals, we need to grow and we need to be vulnerable. Trust is a very important part to getting access to resources and funding and to bring people in to what you're doing. So vulnerability aids in establishing and strengthening trust. Okay. But again, it's a very personal journey. We cannot dictate how you do that or whatever. But you should want to grow in these areas in order to fulfill your destiny. You are not required to reveal anything about your personal life that you are not comfortable in doing so. Okay? However, find ways you can share about yourself. Again, it will assist you and your relationship with others to grow. So just in closing, before you actually look at that first step in PROPEL, I just wanted to have you, you may not have a week, because you could have come into this where you need to really start moving. But my suggestion is, before you even get into the venture cultivation and before you get into PROPEL, that you just start out, a week before trying to journal and take a day of rest and just see if you can find some rhythm to discover what will work for you. Because the idea is it's better to be consistent with something than not be consistent with many things. Okay? So that's my final tip for you. This is just, again, the orientation. So after you've done these first steps, okay, as you see appropriate, your initial step into PROPEL is to go to step 1. Thank you, and I'll be talking to you and seeing you in the next session.